Thomas and Friends, based on the railway series by Reverend W. Awdry. Created by Britt Allcroft, read by Mark Morahan and Friends. This is the story about Thomas the Tank Engine, a cheeky little blue steam engine with 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. He is the #1 engine on Sir Topham Hatt's railway and has a whistle that sounds like this. So now you've met the hero of our story, let's begin our journey. All aboard for a big adventure. Thomas and the Beanstalk. It was the end of a very busy day on the island of Sodor. As the engine settled down for the night, Thomas the Tank Engine told his friends James and Percy his favourite bedtime story, Jack and the Beanstalk. Percy said he liked the part about the magic beans. James wondered if giants liked steam engines. The next morning, Thomas went to Farmer McColl's to collect some heavy sacks. Thomas wondered what was inside.
What's in the sacks?
Beans, replied Farmer McColl.
Beans? Just like in my bedtime story.
And with that, Thomas peeped his whistle and set off to deliver the sacks of beans. Suddenly, a big mean engine called Diesel 10 appeared around a bend, shouting at Thomas as he sped past.
Get out of my way, little toy tank engine!
Thomas couldn't move fast enough. Crash! Diesel 10 bashed into him and raced off. Poor little Thomas was forced off the tracks and tipped over onto his side, spilling the beans out of his cars. Thomas opened his eyes, dazed and confused. To his surprise, he was back on the rails. He noticed some of the beans were scattered in the grass next to the tracks. Pop! A tiny green leaf shot straight out of the ground. The tiny leaf began to grow into a big plant. Then it got bigger and bigger and bigger until it became a giant towering beanstalk, stretching all the way up into the sky. The giant beanstalk looked like the one in his story, all leafy and green, and bigger than any tree Thomas had ever seen. But this beanstalk had railway tracks circling all the way up to the top. Thomas was a little scared, but he was also very curious. So he decided to be brave and ride up the tracks to see what was at the top of the beanstalk. Thomas chuffed and puffed, around and around, higher and higher, right up through the clouds. Finally, Thomas reached the top. He could hardly believe his eyes. There, up above the clouds, Thomas had discovered a giant magical world. He was surrounded by gigantic trees, enormous colourful flowers, and in front of him was a huge towering castle.
Bust my buffers! Everything is so big!
Thomas chuffed slowly along the tracks and into the castle courtyard. Then, Thomas heard the sound of a steam whistle. It was the most beautiful whistle Thomas had ever heard. He looked around, but couldn't see where it was coming from. Boom! At that moment, the ground beneath him began to shake. Boom, boom, it continued. Suddenly, a gigantic foot landed in front of him. Boom! Thomas looked up and saw a man towering over the entire courtyard. He was a giant, just like the giant from Thomas's bedtime story. In the giant's enormous hand was a gleaming gold steam engine. The giant put the gold engine down on the railway track. To Thomas's surprise, the giant started to push the gold engine back and forth on the track. all the while he made peeps and whistle sounds in his booming voice.
Peep, peep.
The giant was playing with the little engine as if she were a toy. Then a loud horn blasted nearby. Thomas looked up and saw that mean engine Diesel 10 approaching. Only this time he was enormous, big enough for the giant to ride in. The giant left the little gold engine on the track and walked over to the huge Diesel. Thomas saw his chance. He hurried over to speak to the gold engine.
What is this place?
The gold engine looked unhappy.
It's the giant's castle. I don't like it here. I want to go home.
She told Thomas that she had been taken away from her home, where she was a very special engine.
I run on golden coal. But here, I'm just the giant's favorite toy.
Thomas wanted to help the gold engine.
I don't know how to get to your home from here, but I can take you back to mine. You would be safe and happy there.
Thomas told her about the island of Sodor, where everything was the right size for them.
But how do we get to Sodor?
I climbed up a giant beanstalk to get here. It's this way.
But Thomas began to slow down, then finally puffed to a halt. Thomas had used up all his coal climbing the beanstalk. The gold engine knew how she could help.
Take some of my golden coal. Quickly, I think I have just enough to get us both out of here.
With the special gold coal in his hopper, Thomas felt magical. His pistons puffed faster than ever before as he raced out of the castle, with the golden engine following close behind. At that moment, the giant made a loud sniffing noise.
I smell steam.
His thunderous voice boomed across the courtyard.
3, 5, 4, thumb. I see 2 engines on the run. If they're toys or if they're real, I'll now have 2 engines to steal.
The giant chased after Thomas and the gold engine. Thomas sped up, heading towards the top of the beanstalk. Thomas and the gold engine barreled down the tracks, spinning around and around the beanstalk until they reached the bottom. Thomas was relieved.
We made it! We're in Sodor!
But when the 2 engines looked up, they were shocked to see that the giant was coming down the beanstalk after them.
Oh no! Sodor is full of engines! The giant will take them all for his toys!
Thomas did the only thing he could think of. He backed up and raced forward, bashing into the beanstalk with all his might. He saw his friends James and Percy in the distance and called for them to help. Now all 4 engines slammed into the beanstalk. The beanstalk creaked and groaned. It was about to fall. Thomas closed his eyes, bracing for the crash.
Thomas! Thomas!
Thomas opened his eyes to find 2 rescue engines pulling him upright, putting his 6 little wheels back on the track. Thomas looked around, confused. Percy and James were still there, but the little gold engine was gone. Thomas looked around.
Where's the beanstalk? Beanstalk?
Percy asked.
What beanstalk?
Thomas told his friends about everything that had happened. About the beanstalk, the magical world above the clouds, the giant and the special gold engine.
It seems so real, but it must have been a dream.
Then Percy saw something that made him gasp.
Thomas, look!
Thomas's driver was holding up a single piece of gold-colored coal. Thomas looked amazed. He didn't know what to say, because it had all been a dream, hadn't it? The end. Listen out for other adventures with Thomas and Friends Storytime. Thomas and Friends is a registered trademark of Ghislaine Thomas Limited.